Well, hello everybody. I thought I would do an interesting little photo editing tutorial for you because I know there's a very popular photo editing technique or look that's out there about how we take our horses and we put them on a very dark background. And to give you an idea what this originally looked like, this is a photo of our little BC Wildie baby Annie. And I was taking a pile of pictures, as you can see down below. I've got some really cutie pie ones here. Look at her kind of just in the trees there, just looking at me here. And this is actually my usual view of her when she is backing up for some scratches. But this one here was one that I thought I would feature. And of course, let me know if you guys want me to do more photo editing tutorials if you're interested in that kind of thing. I am, and so I thought I would share. So the original photo looked like this, very dark. And what you can kind of do to help your process along is make sure to set up your lighting correctly. And in this case, I'm just using the sun coming from the the right-hand side of the horse, the left-hand side for us, so that it lights up her eye and her blaze. And I still have all this detail in here. So essentially you would have your exposure set down. If you can do that, if you can set that up in your camera, it's best so that you don't lose all of this detail in the white. And you start off with a picture that already has the background kind of dark. So if I bring it back to the way I've edited it, the way I can kind of bring this out to bring her face brighter, yet leave the back alone and keep her eye bright. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come over. I've got a bunch of settings here. I'm using Lightroom, and you can use any photo editing software to do this kind of thing. It's no big deal. And I'm just going to reset all of my settings in here. And I've also got what's called a mask. If I click this, you can see I've got this little tiny mask, and I've just got it over top of her eye. So I'm going to go ahead and just disable that for now, I guess. And we'll talk about what that does in a second. And I'll close that up. All right. So when we start off with the basic shot that's already kind of dark, we've got the right-hand side of the horse pretty dark. The left-hand side is because it's far off in the distance and sort of blurred out. So it's using a lens that it's got a fantastic blur or bokeh factor to it. It's a macro lens, actually, 100 millimeter macro lens. And you can actually see that down here if you were to look. This is a Canon EF 100 macro lens. And this is really handy for being able to take these shots that you get the eyelashes in focus. I mean, you can see the eye is perfectly in focus. And yet just behind there is not. So all that fuzz is kind of out. So this is another key thing to get done because you don't want a lens that's going to get everything. And like if all this stuff was in focus, it just wouldn't quite fit. And over here too, obviously the whole mane is way out of focus. And but she's facing me pretty directly. So your subject, your lighting, your camera setup will take you so far. And that then you don't have to worry so much about what you're doing for an edit. So the first thing that I kind of want to do is I want to drag these shadows down a little more. And you can drag them all the way down. Everything just turns black. But I kind of want just a hint of stuff that's going on back there. So I'm just going to bring it down a little. And I can still see, if I look here, I can still see that it's got a bit of green. There's still something to it. If I drag these shadows way up, you can see that there's some green back there. And I just take that down just enough to kind of hide it. And we can see over here, we still got a little bit. I'm actually going to bring the exposure up a little because I want to light her face a bit better. So I'm going to light her face to where I think it should be. And what I don't want to do is I don't want to blow out this lovely blaze that she's got going on here. And if I were to take the exposure up too high, you can see how it just blows it out. We've got lost detail in there. So if you want to zoom in there, and then we just bring that down just maybe around there, just so we've kind of got that. Now, that's pretty good for her. We can do that. We can actually probably bring the whites down. So the white is all of this white, and we can actually probably take down the highlights a little bit and then push the exposure up just a smidge. Now, the green in the background is kind of still there, which is good. I'm liking that. And I like that I can kind of see her mane. But if you wanted to really take that out, just drop your shadows down even further. But I sort of like it, so I'm going to leave that there. And then you can also mess with the blacks, which will really kind of take all that out, but I don't really want to do that. I'm just going to leave this at maybe -1, just to what they call crushing the blacks. And if we look up here in this histogram, we can see that there's a lot of brights over here, or sorry, blacks over here and whites way over here. And there's not much in white right now. So a lot of black, a lot of dark. So if we look at it like that, these are clippings. So all of this information is essentially lost, and there's nothing clipped in the white, which is fantastic. So we're good at that. So we've got all that detail if we really wanted it. But I really like that. So now we've got this area that's been blacked out over here. Actually, let's turn off this profile correction thing. And when we turn this on, it's a very subtle thing, but sometimes it brightens the image. I'm just going to leave it on, actually. It did not change the brightness much, so that's good. Sometimes when using a zoom lens, you turn that on and the brightness goes pop. All right. So the saturation was already up for some reason. I guess it didn't reset that, but I just want that to be up. I think I put it at 11. Yeah, something like that, 12. That's pretty good. That gives her colors just right. And then the problem is that her eye is just way too dark, right? It's just a black eye at this point. Because if we wanted to bring that out, we could bring up the shadows, and you can start to see this eye starts to come in and this eye starts to come in. We can now see the detail in there, and that's really nice. But unfortunately, our whole background has come in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reset this back down to where I think the background should be, and then we're going to go into the masks. Now, depending on your photo editing software of choice, this might be different, but it's a way to kind of we're just going to target the eye. So I'm going to turn this one back on, and essentially what it is, actually, you know what? Why don't we just go ahead and delete it? Let's delete this mask, and we're going to make a brand new one. Let's go ahead and make a brand new one. And in here, we can pick a radial gradient. And I'm just going to target the eye. I'm just going to do something like this, drag that there. And I want to bring that eye back. Let's just set this up a little bit. Might do a better job than what I originally did. Okay, so we're only going to be affecting this area when we come over here. So check this out. If I push the exposure way up, you can see that we can now see the eye. And that's kind of handy, but it does look kind of weird because now the black around her eye doesn't look black anymore. So we don't really want to mess too much with the exposure. What we want to mess with is the shadows. And if we bring the shadows up quite a bit, we can see that her eye detail is starting to return. And so we'll bring those up, and we might just, let's go ahead and just bring that exposure up just a hair more. We don't want too much in there, right? So that's pretty good. I'm going to move this just a little this way. And that way we can kind of, let's rotate it just a hair that way. All right, something like that. And what we don't want to do is we don't want this mask to extend out into here. Like if we took this over here, you can see how that green is starting to show up like a flashlight, right? It brings out the shadows. So that's what we want to do to our eye. So we don't want the mask to be over here and bring out that green. So we want to bring it just a little over there. And this area here is the feather. So it's kind of, we can adjust the feather to have a hard edge, or if I really make this obvious, I'll show you what this does. I'll bring up that. And if we bring the feather down, we should be able to see how it really looks like a flashlight. And if we bring the feather all the way up, it fades that flashlight out. So I like a feather somewhere midway in here, and we're going to bring this exposure way back down again. Something that makes sense. And if you get kind of confused, like what does that even look like? We can just make that disappear, bring it back, on, off. And I just think I'm going to bring the highlights down a smidge, because I don't like that this part of her eye is so bright. So I'm just going to bring those highlights down a little bit more, something like that. And we could even actually mess with the whites. And maybe we could bring the blacks up a little bit, not much, just a tiny bit. And then if we want to, we could sharpen it a bit more, give a little sharpness in here. And then we can check that out, say, what does that look like? So that's the before, right? And there's the after. So that looks a little bit better, so that we can close that up. And I'd say that that's kind of what we need to do. Now I could bring back this eye. I kind of thought about it, but I actually like that it's a little, it's in the dark. You can sort of just see that there's an eyeball there. You know there's an eyeball there, but and that's sort of the effect that we're going for. We want a black, dark background, blacked out. In fact, I might, you know what I might do? I might just bring these shadows down just a touch more. Really kind of black that out, and then you get this whole half of the face lit up, and the other part's dark. You know the rest of the horse is there. You know there's got to be some in the background, but this is a look that's really quite popular. So hopefully that's been kind of interesting. We're going to leave it at that. If you have any questions, let me know anytime. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Let me know if these kinds of things are interesting for you.